Hello, hello. I know, guys, I said I was going to tell you when I was going to go live, and I didn't, but hopefully you guys come on and join me, and we'll get started. So I know many people are going to catch the replay. That is fine. Make sure you get back to me if you have any questions. Today we're going to talk about working memory. I have all my notes in front of me, so you're not going to see me look at you 24/7 because I want to make sure that I'm very detailed with this. We're going to talk about how working memory will affect your child in every single area of academics and in the school setting completely. Okay? So it's really important to understand the seriousness of this, and the reason I say that is because I have seen it more and more and more and more on how I see all these deficits. I see, the IEP, something's, just a little bit off. It's not addressing all of the child's concerns, and I'm just trying to, this is me, in advance of an IEP meeting, trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get this child exactly what they need? Because something's not working here. And then I'm looking at other IEPs and the IEP before that, and things are pretty consistent and not much has changed. And so I'm racking my brain and thinking, thanks, Erin, about what needs to happen so that working memory is widely known. It should be already widely known, right? In all assessments, WISC, WIAT, KTEA, all of those top psychoeducational evaluations, it covers working memory. So I'm just trying to understand why this area is not focused on as much as it should. All right. Hey, Sky, come shut Mom's door, please. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
All right. So what I want you guys to do, yesterday I asked you guys to look at your IEPs, check it out, see what's there, see what's going on, and go from there. All right? I gave you kind of some homework yesterday. So if you haven't seen that video from yesterday, go check it out and then come back to this one. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Raven Woods. I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting. And so with that said, I have some exciting news too. Post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. So 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. All right? 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. And make sure, get into that search bar and put Autism Mama Rocks, the IEP group, and join the group. All right? So we're going to talk about working memory. Then I'll tell you some exciting news, okay? Excited about it because it's such a freaking nightmare to do. So I'm excited to tell you about this. Okay, so working memory is the retention of small amount of information readily accessible, okay? It facilitates, and we went over this yesterday, it facilitates planning, comprehension, reasoning, and problem solving, okay? The areas in which it affects. Does your child have issues with reading? Weaknesses in reading? Behind in reading? Same thing with math. The next thing is written expression. All right? So you got math, you got reading, and you have written expression. All right? Those are your deficit areas in regard to working memory. All right? So let's move forward. Working memory is the small amount of information that can be held in the mind, used in the execution. Sorry about my dog. He's hanging out. Rocco, come here. So used in the execution of cognitive tasks in contrast with long-term memory and vast amount of information saved from one's life. Okay, so that is kind of in a introductory sentence what working memory would be. All right, so the areas that working memory can be significant in is it will affect behavior, number one, because it is focused in the area of math and reading, which in themselves are frustrating, you know? So if you are reading something, you're already struggling with reading. We're talking about children with disabilities, right? Top that off with working memory issues, and comprehension is just going to be non-existent. Okay? So you have a child with disabilities, whether it be autism, dyslexia, ADHD, whatever it is, and then you add working memory to that disability. It's going to severely impact them. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of children out there with ADHD or autism that don't even need special education. They are functioning fine. They may need some accommodations, they may need some modifications, but there are many children out there who don't need an IEP or, you know, all the services and accommodations and modifications that you would think because they actually function well. But if they have working memory issues, it's going to impact them with more severity. All right? So let's move forward. Let's talk about reading for a second in regard to working memory. Working memory affects reading specifically with the retention of information. So if you're reading something and you cannot retain that information, even a sentence, and then be able to distribute it, to be able to put it on paper or to be verbal about it and verbalize it and explain. So if you have a child who, a lot of goals say this, all right? So Sarah will read a passage and answer anywhere from 2 to 6 questions in regards to that passage. All right, I hear that all the time, okay? And it's a very popular goal, all right? I think it can be made better, but that's a very popular goal. So Sarah will read such and such paragraph, passage, topic, whatever, and will then be able to tell 2 to 6 things, whatever number, in regards to what they read, what she read. That is not something that would be easy for a child with working memory issues because more than likely they're not going to remember what it is that they read. Okay? A lot of children as well need a lot of support if there's working memory issues. And what I mean by support is a ton of accommodations that we're going to talk about. A few of them. So the next area is math. All right, so math is different types of problems. It can be analytical. You have to actually think your way through the process. It has a process, a step-by-step. Guess what? You actually, even though you and I may be, okay, so we're doing double-digit subtraction and we have to carry over, right? Well, we have to understand that process, you know? It's like, okay, does 5 go into 4? No. Okay, you cross out the 4, you make it a 1, it becomes 14, then you go 14 minus 5, right? Well, we understand that process, that step by step by step. Children with working memory issues do not know how to process that step, let alone go through it and remember each step that they have to take in order to get that problem right. Okay? So that's number 2. Number 3 is written expression. All right, let's go back to reading. If you have working memory issues, all right, Sarah's reading that passage. She has to answer 3 to 6 or whatever questions in regards to that passage, paragraph, topic, book, whatever, okay? And she can't answer those questions because she's trying to think back on what she just read and it didn't stick, okay? She didn't comprehend it. It was fluency, but no comprehension. And the comprehension concerns, okay, were in result of working memory issues, deficits, okay? Same thing with writing, okay? It's you take that same goal of answering 2 to 3 to 6 questions in regards to something that you read, all right, your child read, and then, okay, let's answer those 2 to 3 to 6 questions and put it on paper instead of verbalize it, okay? Children with apraxia, this is a great way for them to show that they processed what they read because it cannot come out verbally for most, okay? So then you're asking a child with working memory issues to do the same thing that they would be doing if they were verbally telling you, okay, Sarah says, all right, I just read about the boy and the ball, all right? And then we ask 3 to 6 questions about the boy and the ball, and she cannot answer those questions. Well, the same thing with writing. Ask those same questions, have the child write it on paper, okay? So that's called written expression. So when you take what you are reading and you're able to express it and write it in a paper. Remember, if you're anywhere near my age, and I'm pretty sure they still do this. My kids are grown, so I'm not sure. Skylar's not, but the other 2 are. So remember we used to do book reports? Do the kids still do that? It's been so long. Okay, so book reports, what do? They have to read a book, and then they have to talk about the plot and the main idea and all of these different things, the characters and the different things about the book. Well, these are things that are not retained with children who have working memory issues. They're going to struggle a lot, all right? That struggle is then going to add a 4th concern. The 4th concern is then behavior, all right? So do you see how this is affecting the child in the whole realm of education? The whole picture is just turned upside down over working memory, all right? We're not even talking about in this live about any type of progress. We're not talking about academics. We're not talking about reading or math or writing or anything like that. We're simply talking about working memory. Just pretend that your child only has working memory issues, all right? We all know that our children have, disability plus working memory issues, okay? But let's just talk about working memory issues as a standalone, all right? So now we're going to talk about behavior. You have a child, they're reading something. It's not sticking, all right? And then they're asked a series of questions to prove, basically, that they understand what it is that they read. And then they're either asked to answer those questions, or maybe even they're put in front of a group of children and everybody's answering questions, and then they're put on the spot. Or they are at a one-on-one or whatnot, and they're having to answer the questions. But either way, put on the spot or with somebody one-on-one, they're still feeling that awkwardness of the inability to take initiative and do what they were asked to do. And so what does that cause? It causes behavior issues. And the behavior issues aren't off the wall typically, but they are very much in line with sensory issues, to be quite honest. It affects them with with frustration and with anxiety and those types of concerns with behaviors. So it's the same thing if you don't know an answer to a question. It's frustrating. You don't understand what's going on. You're not understanding why you can't get the answer, or, you can't get the answer out. And some children with working memory issues know the answer, but they cannot put it in writing or verbalize it. It's stuck. So, and they're trying to retain and remember that information to then get it out, either in written expression and writing or verbally, and it's not coming out, all right? So you have 2 different ways in which that information is not getting on paper or it's not coming out, all right? So these are issues, and they're concerns because children like to do well. They want to do well. And working memory is going to affect your child in more ways than you think. There's another way. So we already covered reading. It's going to affect reading. You read something, you didn't retain it, so guess what? You're not going to be able to put it in writing, written expression. You're not going to be able to verbalize it by answering questions in regards to what you read, so comprehension. You're not going to be able to answer math questions. You're not going to be able to do the steps that math requires, subtraction and multiplication and division. There's steps in math that you have to remember and retain. And then you have to remember what order those steps are in. And if you cannot retain that information, so the child could possibly know how to do the problem, but they're not at the moment, in a lot of situations, remembering how to step-by-step it. Unless you're right there with them saying, okay, we have 54 minus 9. Okay? So then 4 minus 9, you can't do it, right? So then you have to what? Borrow. So then you have to cross out that 5. You add a 1. It becomes 15. Then you have 15 minus 9, right? Well, that just came naturally for me, where for a child with working memory issues is not going to remember what comes next. Okay? That is a frustration all on its own. Take the disability out of the child. Take anything else out of the child. Just give them working memory. Okay? I'm just going to show you this picture. I'm painting this picture for you so that you can paint it in your head, kind of like how children are supposed to read, right? What I tell you guys, you have to paint the picture to be able to express it. All right, hold on. Let me let my dog out real quick. Hang on. Come on. Go. All right. Okay. So that's a big deal. All right? A big deal. And I've seen more and more kids get more and more frustrated. And I'm seeing IEPs where I'm looking at them and just racking my brain as to what we need to do to change what's happening up because it's not working. So we covered math. We covered reading, right? So let's just go to writing. All right, if you don't comprehend what you're reading, you're not understanding it, you're definitely not going to be able to put it on paper. Remember that story I told you guys where the director of special education swore up and down that this teacher had direct instruction in reading and was able to do reading intervention? He ended up sending me, he said, here's the teacher's certification, and it ended up being a certificate, just a certificate of attendance. And we were talking about reading and, issues with that. And, I remember going on and on and on about the impact here. And he wanted to proceed with, oh, well, this is the perfect person. And I said, okay, let me see their credentials. And then it blew up from there. So I want you guys to understand that working memory is going to impact every single thing within the academic setting. Everything. PE, music, everything. Because if you can't retain, it won't stick. How are you going to remember what to do? All right? Have you ever seen kids, maybe you have a child like this, where you're like, you can say, okay, stand in line and make sure you wait right there and all that, let's just pretend they're in kindergarten. And you say, wait right there, everybody's going to go to the bathroom. And I remember when I taught kindergarten, I'd say, okay, boys, you go on and go. And everybody else, when you come back out, make sure you stand in line. And then the girls would go into the girls' bathroom. And then I'd have my little hand sanitizer. And, they'd come out and I'd squirt the hands and they got back in line. All right? So if the child cannot process the steps I ask them to do when going to the bathroom, just something simple, then what's going to happen? They're going to be distracted. They may be walking down, and this happened. They may be walking down the hall. They may be walking over and talking to their friends. They may be hanging out in the bathroom and making bubbles in the sink. Oh yeah, that happened too. All kinds of things can happen because the child did not process the steps that I gave him. All right? So we covered reading, we covered math, we covered writing, because you can't write what you read or comprehended if you can't comprehend it at all and it's not being retained, right? So, all right, so I think that's a lot of academics. All right, let's just take social studies, all right? What happens in social studies? Most of the time you're reading boring stuff. I didn't like social studies. All right, so I remember when I lived in Texas, just short story, I lived in Texas, and we had to learn Texas history. Oh, it was horrid. Oh, it was awful. I don't remember a thing. Nothing. All right, so here's the deal. What do you do in social studies? You have to remember that stuff, right? You know, kind of like we learn about Martin Luther King, you know, and we learn about Christopher Columbus, and we learn about, you know, all the different things that had happened. And in today's world, what happened, you know, before we learned about, I remember learning about Vietnam. I remember learning about things that kind of stood out to me, you know? But that's not working memory issues. That's selective, you know, selective memory. So bottom line, you know, not joking around anymore. It's a big deal. And it's not the same as how children will remember what they want to remember, okay? This is a serious deficit and impact of their disability. But on the other hand, a child can just have working memory issues, all right? They don't have to have a specific disability, all right? So we moved on to where I explained behavior. Behavior is it's impactful in this, but the reason why behavior stems from working memory is because of the frustration of it. So it's one of those things. Real quick, guys, if you're just joining me, post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Okay, so 1 below. Tell us where you're from. Say hello. If it's your first through third time catching me live, post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Okay? So behavior, unfortunately, is affected because it's frustrating. You know? It's really frustrating. And it's frustrating. I'll just give you a story. And I relate. And I think this helped me as a person. You know, I always try to do better and be better. You know, none of us are perfect. And in 2015, I was crossing the street and I was hit by a truck. Literally walking across the street, not in a car. And I almost died. And I lost all short-term memory for 6 months. All right? And I'll tell you, it was the most frustrating time. I cried all the time. I was upset. I was sad. And it really made me think about my daughter, Skylar, because the remembering things, I didn't process things. If I was talking, and everybody knows I can talk, so I was talking and I would stop mid-sentence and completely forget what I had to say. So I'm just relating to the memory issues. And this isn't even working memory. But that was a little bit gone too. So I related to this because of how frustrating it was. And I was an adult. So I look at, okay, gosh, this is really going to be frustrating. I remember, you know, leaving my keys somewhere. I remember the situation now. I remember that I had left my keys somewhere and I went downstairs and then I just stood there looking around like a deer, deer with its headlights cut off or whatever. And I couldn't figure out where the keys were. You know how when you lose something, you're like backtracking what you did so that you could remember where you left your keys or whatever it was you lost? I couldn't do that. I had no ability to do that. It was white. Like, you know how people will say that they see white, you know, with memory issues or some issues with, you know, the brain? I saw nothing. So there was no recalling where I left my keys. I couldn't even begin to look for them other than just walk around the house because I had no idea where I had left them. So eventually my memory came back. At about 6 months, it started coming back. At 1.5 years, I was good. But you know, to this day, people laugh at me, but I color code my calendar so that I remember everything, and my memory is back, I would say 85%. But I write everything down so it's 100%. You know, I make sure that I cover what it is that I need to cover to make sure that I do what I need to do. All right. So I'm able to compensate. All right. And that is where accommodations come in. So hopefully that makes sense. But what I'm saying is I understand where these kids are in a way, and understand and have compassion because I remember what it felt, not remembering. Working memory, short-term memory, you know, whatever, visual memory, it still has that same feeling of this sunken feeling in your gut of just you're just not recalling. And then in school, now picture you have other kids, you have teachers saying, come on, Sam, come on, tell us what the answer is, you know, and they're asked 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. That's embarrassing. That's putting someone on the spot. I don't like being put on the spot. I know, and nobody likes being put on the spot. And then you're putting a kid on the spot that is already feeling weak in what they're doing, you know? So it's going to cause behavior issues because they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be aggravated. They're going to be, they're going to have anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety after my accident because I couldn't remember anything. And then I would have dreams, or I would have different things that would wake me up to tell me, okay, this is what happened. And I'd kind of recall it at that moment. It's interesting how the brain does heal itself. Very interesting. Like I would speak at some brain injury seminars and stuff of how my story kind of took place and how it all came back, you know? And it's the same for these kids is, you know, but it's something that can be improved upon if they're given the right accommodations. All right. It's almost very, very, very specific accommodations that they need in order to get their brain back to thinking the way it needs to strengthen their memory. All right. You can actually exercise the brain to get things more ready to respond. All right. And so that's where I'm seeing in IEPs, you know how I said I had to rack my brain as to what is going on here? Why am I seeing so many working memory issues and them not being fixed, them not being worked on? Okay. So it's something that really has to be put at the forefront, if you will. I actually feel like let me see. I feel like a lot of educators do not focus so much attention on working memory, if I said that right. I'll just say it how I think it, okay? So I don't think that importance is put into working memory concerns or the impact that it has on the student. That's what I think, okay? I can say I know it. I do know it. But what is that doing? I'm fighting for kids in IEP meetings. I know that working memory is one of the main issues that they continue to have, and their academics aren't improving the way they should be, but you want to address the academics and not the working memory. Explain the logic in that to me. And that is where my frustration comes in. is working memory has come up and come up and come up, and I'm like, okay, just like reading, I need to do a live on working memory and how it affects the child in whole. All right? It's kind of like, you know, when you eat healthy, you feel better and you have more energy and so on and so forth. Same thing with when you work on working memory issues and strengthen the mind, that those concerns, the reading concerns, the comprehension concerns, the written expression concerns, the math concerns, the frustration and anxiety with behavior concerns that come from it, all of this is maybe not going to completely go away, but it is going to improve. Now, you're asking me, what do I suggest? All right. One of the top things I love is organizational binders. Color-coded organizational binders. What does that do? All right. When your mind sees color, it thinks outside the box. It's like an automatic thing. All right. You see orange and you start relating. Okay. Orange means math. Green means science. You know, I've said this before, but it really works. How you train your brain is training it to do something or see something in a different way. All right. So visual memory, because working memory is that great big circle that has visual memory and auditory memory, and all of these different things stemmed from it. All right. And when you start addressing the different areas, the issue in whole gets better. All right. Another accommodation I really like, and some people may call this lazy. I completely do not think it's lazy. I don't think it affects the child in any way, shape, or form, is when the teacher hands over written notes or help for a quiz. You know, like kind of just writes it out. Notes for the child, study guide for the child, whatever. That it's already pre-written, because a lot of teachers, which they're supposed to, you know, have the children write what they wrote on the board, and then they go home and they study. Well, not going to work for a child that can't write it properly, and it's not going to work for children with written expression concerns, and it's not going to work for children with comprehension issues, and it's not going to definitely work for children who have working memory issues. Okay? Because the whole eye to hand is going to be an issue. All right? Looking at something, visualizing it, then putting it on paper. Looking at it again, visualizing it, then putting it on paper. That's very difficult for a child with working memory issues, or even visual, just a simple visual memory, because they're not going to remember long enough to be able to put it back on paper. So guess what's going to happen? They're going to look back up on the board, look at it, go to write it again, didn't remember it again. Do you see the frustration there? And it sounds like something so simple, but it is not as simple for them. It's very difficult for them. All right? And you may think in your head, oh, well, that's easy to fix. Just pay attention, read the board. I mean, don't even go there with a child with working memory issues. That's insulting to them, okay? Because it's not that easy. It's not that easy. You can't just say, okay, well, pay more attention to the board and pay attention and focus better. You can do it. Just make sure you focus. Don't pay attention to all the distractions in the room. Just focus, just focus, just focus. No, it's not all about focus. It's that visual to hand maneuver. You're looking at something, memorizing it, then you have to go put it on paper. That connection is not working. It's not about focus. It's not about the child being off task. It's not about the child, being worried about what Johnny over there is doing. It's they're looking. Okay, so there's something that happens too, is teachers think, oh, the child's off task. They're looking everywhere. They're doing this. Why? Because they don't know how to do this. They don't know how to look at the board, then put it on paper. Look at the board, put it on paper. So what happens is they do nothing, and they start looking around the room and tapping their pencil and doing different things. Why? Because they're off task at that point, because they're frustrated. They can't do it. So what else are they supposed to do? Right? So that has to be resolved. Guess what? A one-on-one para or a para within the classroom then needs to step in. Okay? That's when they can hone in that focus. They can read the board and the child can write, okay? Because that eye to hand is not working because they're not remembering. It's going away from that look back to the paper. It's gone. Maybe they'll remember a couple words, but it's going to be so slow. Say the teacher wrote a paragraph and the child's only remembering 2, 3, 4 words because the working memory is not there. Okay, so they're reading the words. What happens when we read words? If you just break it down and not make it as easy as it is for you and I, if you break it down to reading a paragraph, all right, and then you process it in your brain, and then you have to take what processed and then put it on paper. There's something to that, you know? And when you have working memory issues or visual memory, all right, or if they're not writing, they're talking, auditory memory, all right, to put on paper, that child is going to get frustrated. They're going to get angry. They're going to be off task. So do you see how it affects reading? It affects comprehension. It affects math. It affects written expression. It affects focus. It affects behavior. Everything. Everything. Every part of education and academics, working memory is going to be an issue. So you have to focus on fixing the problem. And then you can improve the academics. You cannot go, and it's so frustrating because I was telling a teacher today, I said, can you paint a picture for me? Do you mind? And he said no. He was a super, super nice teacher. And I said, can you explain to me how you were teaching this child double-digit subtraction with carrying over? And he was explaining how he teaches the child by he shows them and then covers it up and then has them do it. Now that can work for some kids. Didn't work for mine, but that can work for some kids. So I said, can I give you a suggestion? You know, because we were talking about a child who has working memory issues. I said, you know, with my daughter, I said she has working memory issues and there was no way that I could just cover showing her how to do something and then say, hey, Skylar, okay, go ahead and do it. Didn't work like that for her. So what I did was I wrote down, so if you guys have children who have working memory issues and you're doing subtraction or double-digit subtraction, this is just a suggestion, is I step-by-stepped it with her, all right? So we have this double-digit subtraction problem, okay? And so let's just go back to that problem we had. I don't remember the exact numbers, but let's just go back to the problem I had. I think it was like 54 minus 9, all right? So 4 can't be subtracted from 9, right? So, or you can't do 4 minus 9. All right, so then what do? You know, so I would say, okay, Sky, what do you do? And so I would say, do I need to put a number here? And she would say no. I said, well, do I need to do something with this 5? And she would say no. I said, well, don't I do something with this 5? You know, because I had already gone through the process with her several times. So I said, what do I do with this 5? Do I cross it out? Then she remembered because I used that verbiage that she remembered. You cross out the 5, you put a 1, it becomes, or 4, and then you put a 1 next to the 4, and it becomes 14. Then you can do 14 minus 9, right? So I had to step-by-step it with her, and I had to use wording she remembered that triggered her brain, that she processed of the little bits and pieces that she processed of what I said on how to solve the problem. So then when I said, okay, what do I do with 5? So she would say, you cross it out. So I would cross it out. I said, what do I do now? And she said, you put a 4. So I said, okay. So I put a 4. I said, where do I put the 4? And so she would tell me where to put the 4. I said, good job. Now what do I do? So do you see how I step-by-stepped it with her? And then she would say, you put a 1. I said, what do you mean? So I would play kind of dumb so that she would then explain it to me. All right, so I said, what do you mean you put a 1, Sky? And she said, well, you put a 1 next to the 4. Why do I do that, Sky? And she would say, you have to make it 14. Okay, so what does the 14 do, Sky? What do I do now? And so she would say, you have to do 14 minus 9. I said, okay, you do that. tell me what that is. And then she would do the math. And, you know, sometimes it would be, I would have her count jelly beans or, you know, something like that. Sometimes she would do it in her head, that sort of thing. But I broke down the problem. Then I verbally walked through it with her. So as you heard me say, I didn't give her the answer. I walked her through the steps, and then I would question the steps so that she would then verbalize what I was supposed to do. Why did I have her do that? Because when you verbally say something, you are going to remember it longer. Okay? It's kind of like I'm the type of person, if I want to remember something, even if I don't have to, I'll write it down. I'm a scribbler, all right? I have to have paper. I scribble on the paper. It helps me retain and helps me remember. Well, the same thing with if you say it verbally, okay? If you have a memory issue and you say something verbally or you write it down, it helps you remember it better. So when I was going through it with her, breaking it down, using wording that she's heard, that she can recall, then she was able to walk through the steps better. And you see the difference between doing the problem yourself, covering it up, and then having a student do that, compared to walking them through the steps so they actually learn the physical steps that they have to do so that they start remembering from doing it over and over and over. And it's practice makes perfect. So I just had her do it over, and I walked through it with her every single time. It made me batshit crazy, but she learned it. Now she can do double, triple, whatever subtraction you give her, carrying over, whatever it is you got to give her, she can do it because I just kept repeating and repeating and repeating and having her walk through every single step. And then if I walked through the step and I verbalized it, then I would have her answer why I did that. And so what it did, and even if she couldn't answer right away or didn't have the answer or forgot at that moment, I would then answer, and then I'd ask a question again. So I would answer, oh, you put the 1 next to the 4. Why did I put the 1 next to the 4? And then she would say, because it makes it 14, and then you can take away 9. All right? So even though she may have forgotten one step or the why of the one step, she remembered why the process was there and why that 14 had to be there so that we could then take away 9. All right? So it was all about just practicing and repeating and practicing and repeating. But that's how it is with children with working memory issues. You've got to have patience, and you have to be able to help them just play it and play it and play it again. All right? So knowing this, organizational binders. Okay, that's a number 1. Giving the child the notes, all right? Just hand it over, all right? If they're going to take a test, you need to hand those notes over. If those notes can have some visual ideas, thoughts, cues, etc., tips, great. The more color you can put into those notes, the better, okay? Those are big, big things that will help in working memory retention and helping them recall different information. Chunking. Chunking is a great one. I love chunking. What chunking is taking grand bits of information and chunking it into small bits and pieces. Okay, so you take a big rock, you break it, and it becomes all these little pieces of rock. That's what chunking is you're taking a big piece of something that means the same thing, and you're chunking it into different areas so that it is broken down. All right? Thank you. This is what we are doing. Great to know. We are on the right track. Are you? Oh, good, good, good. So chunking is a big one. I like chunking. All right? If done properly. Everything's if it's done properly. All right? The other thing, break what is being said into smaller sentences, all right? So teachers, all right, when you're teaching, don't talk to talk, all right? Talk to teach, meaning you have to keep it simple. If you break things down, you chunk your words, all right? And in all honesty, here's the thing with accommodations, guys. Accommodations helps all children, disabilities or not. So teaching in a way to support, say you have 5 out of 30 kids in your classroom and you're teaching to address those 5 kids' accommodations by chunking, breaking things down into smaller instructional units, and just being able to develop a way of teaching and a teaching plan that breaks things down. Visual aids, amazing. There's another accommodation that can come into play. Teacher has to get a little bit creative, but visual aids, especially right now today online, huge, especially for speech. So if you have a speech therapist right now teaching your child, then the more visual aids, the better, okay? Because you're going to keep that child engaged, all right? And believe it or not, being engaged, having a child be engaged is not just small children, all right? I have a short attention span. You have about 30 to 60 seconds to get my attention. If not, I'm off doing something else. You know, my husband gets mad at me because I'll start watching, you know, like a Netflix show, you know. And if it doesn't grab my attention pretty quickly, I won't watch it. So you have to grab that attention pretty quickly, and you have to not allow the frustration to begin so that they're open to learning. So the next thing is you want to provide color-coded graphic organizers. That would be number 1. So that was my first thing that I said. So graphic organizers, chunking, putting things into smaller concepts, okay? You want to make sure that what you say is broken down as well, all right? So basically taking your instructional unit, taking what it is that you're teaching. It's kind of like when you're writing, for it to be better to the eye, have 2 to 3 paragraphs, good amount of space, another 2 or 3 paragraphs, good amount of space, another 2 or 3 paragraphs. Because believe it or not, when you or I or anybody wants to read, we want to make it as easy and as quick as possible. So if we see this great big huge back to back to back to back to back huge paragraph, we're going to be like, oh my God. But if we see 3 sentences, a space, 3 sentences, a space, in our minds, we're understanding and conceptualizing it as, oh, this isn't that bad, you know? So that's what chunking is. You're teaching the whole thing. You're just putting it in different areas, all right? Like 4 different boxes, and all those 4 boxes equal 1 box, all right? So another thing that you can do is, so that's more, well, let's go back to that second. So basically when you break things down and say things in just a short way, not so big and confusing, you are able to get more out by saying less in 1 sentence. All right? Because it's being processed and you're not actually having to repeat yourself. Okay? So another thing is exercising the memory. Auditory games. The game memory is great. So teaching a child to strengthen their mind, part of that is exercising the brain. All right. What else? I love talking about this stuff. I just get on a tangent, don't I? So the next thing is modeling. I would say modeling. So, you know, kind of like the story I was telling with my own daughter, Skylar. I was breaking down that mathematical equation, the double-digit subtraction. And what did I do? I went through every single step with her. And what did I do when I did that step? I created a picture. You know, in the beginning, I would put those little square boxes next to the top numbers so that she could then write the other number that would be in. And so it was this visualization for her and giving her the ability to then create more of a picture with it. So she was able to write into those boxes, which created more of a picture for her. So it was broken down. It was given to her in an auditory way. but then it was also visually given to her because I was making square boxes and I was doing different things. I was crossing things out. And I made it very interesting so that she got the auditory, she got the visual, and then she had the tactile. She had the pencil, she was writing it, she was crossing things out, you know, all of that kind of thing. So she was able to really work her brain, and finally it clicked. All right? So kids with working memory, it's not a that sucks for you kind of thing. It can get better. Will it always need to be challenged? Will it always need to be worked and the brain worked and exercised? Yes. Will the child always possibly need chunking? Will the child always possibly need some sort of organizational skill and task in order to be organized and be able to remember where things are and certain things? Possibly. But who cares? Those are great things to have and great tools to have in your toolbox of what to do in a positive way to replace that weakness. All right? So I think I'm going to stop there. It's been like 50 minutes of me running my mouth. And we'll continue. We'll do one more live on working memory. All right? I'll talk about working memory and some of the ultimate goals and working memory more with education. I'll go into that in a little more detail. And then I'll go into the science behind working memory, why it's so important to focus on, why when you're hearing, if you know that your child scored low in working memory, and then your child also did horrible in reading, horrible in written expression, horrible in math, go back to working memory. Forget about, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying forget about the math, written expression, and reading for a second. All right? They're still going to be doing that. They're still going to be in their class. All right? But you need to focus on what needs to be put in place so that the working memory is improved. I promise you, you are always going to improve something. If your child has working memory issues and you are working their brain and you're giving them the accommodations that they severely need to make their life just a little bit easier, then their academics, maybe not in a huge way, but progress is progress. Their math, reading, and written expression will improve. Will it improve to where you're like, oh, this is great? Maybe not. But you got to fix the working memory issue first. If you fix that, put the accommodations in place to fix that and to address that and to continue it repetitively and to always have that in place for your child, then you can go and focus on, okay, what needs to happen to improve reading? All right? What needs to happen to improve math? What needs to happen to improve written expression? But focus on one of the biggest issues that affects all three of those. Proven, scientifically based research, you name it. I mean, like I said yesterday, go back and watch that video. I mean, the research is insane. This one research paper has 135 documented areas in which it was supported. I think I went through it yesterday, but you got the National Academy of Sciences, you got the Journal of Psychology, you have the role of working memory in multimedia instruction, you have the Journal of Experimental Psychology, the Quarterly Journal of Experimental Psychology, you have the Journal of Psychological Science. I mean, 135. That's how much research is behind working memory. All right? It's a big problem. You know? It's so, so important to focus on what could be causing such a severe deficit in certain areas. That doesn't mean our kids don't have disabilities. Of course they do. It means that you have to be able to support it in the right way. If you support something in the right way, They're going to get better. Are they going to be perfect? Nope. Are they going to do better? Yes. And they're going to feel better because they are doing better. All right? And you need to have the right teachers. You know? If you can pick your teachers, I know this is a hard one, but I mean, you want the teachers that want your child to do well. You want the teachers that get excited that they're giving accommodations out that are working, you know? And it's just really important to have that, guys. It really is. All right, so you guys want to hear my story and my excitement today? I can't believe I'm drinking coffee right now, but I needed to pick me up. So I had an IEP this morning, all right. The family is from Ohio, and I'm excited because this child this was the third IEP. I always do my IEPs in a process, so I'm either asking for an IEE or I'm asking for an evaluation. And so we go to the first meeting, I'm fighting for what types of evaluations, all right? I want specific evaluations that are catered around what your child needs, what's appropriate, and what's gonna give me the whole picture of where that child is presently, all right? Then I move on to the second IEP meeting is going over, after I've already gone over with the parents, going over the evaluations, all right, in detail, understanding them, seeing what the strengths are, seeing what the weaknesses are, what's going on, being able to ask the evaluators questions. Then I'm able to really decipher, okay, is this accurate? Is this good? Or does this child need an IEE because I'm feeling uneasy that something wasn't done properly? All right, my hope is that they did a good job, so let's just say that. And then the third IEP is the third IEP meeting is creating the IEP, all right? Because you went through the process and you have the present levels and you have where to get those present levels, right? Which is why I'm doing my course. The first course class is next Saturday. It's not too late to sign up, and there's 3 classes in February. So if you want the link, I can post that for you. I'm really excited about the present levels and goals course. But moving on, post a 1 below, guys. 1 if you're new. First through third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. I forgot to say that again. 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. A 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Okay, so the next thing is this child, okay, we got the child a reading interventionist, certified Orton-Gillingham reading instructor. All right, this reading instructor is going to be doing Wilson, which is around Orton-Gillingham really based, and is going to be giving this child direct instruction. And we're really excited about it. Grandma was thrilled. I was thrilled. And this is a meeting that included the attorney. Whenever I'm in meetings, a lot of times attorneys like to come too. And so, you know, the attorney and I, you know, would discuss, and the director of special education was there. And we all just kind of put our heads together as to what was going to be best for this child. And did we agree on everything? Nope. Did things start off with us smooth? Hell no. But you know what? We came together today, third IEP meeting, and boy, does this child have one hell of an IEP. I mean, I set up 3 hours for the meeting, and it ended up taking 4. And I would say 2 hours was focused on the date changed. I gotta get with you. The 2 hours was focused on goals. All right, we're going back and forth on goals. And on this child, because again, IEPs are individual. So the thing with that is some children need more goals. All right, some need more goals. Some need very few goals so that they can master them and then pick up more goals. It all depends on the child. All right? So let me give you an example. If you want your child, you're like, my child needs 6 goals in reading. All right? Or my child needs 8 goals in reading. That's where my child struggles. All right? Well, you'll hear when I start talking about reading, you know, there's not just the 6 elements of reading. There's so much to reading and the methodologies and the back end of reading that it's confusing as you know what. I mean, until experts at Linda Mood Bell explained it to me, and I mean like kind of pounded it in my head, and to this day I do Zooms with them every month because my daughter's there on top of it. I wouldn't know. And so it's processed now. I get it, you know, like, wow, this is stuff I had no idea, you know, that I've learned in the past year and a half. And, you know, I did not realize that reading is more proficient if done the complete opposite of how I thought it was done, of how I thought it was supposed to be done. This is what my child has to do to be able to read. Boy, was I wrong. So, it's very important to know your child individually, know what's going to be best for them. It's not always a crap ton of goals. Now, I'll tell you, there are some kids where I'm like, okay, we need to spread this out. We need, you know, they need more goals, you know, because that's the type of child they are. But there's some children that you only need a few goals. Let them master it, then move on to the others, you know? Because if you have a teacher just bam, 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 here's the goal, let me take data. Here's the goal, let me take data. Guess what that's going to do? Limit the learning. So some children are not going to do well with that. So you have to, when I work with parents, I have to decipher, okay, well, is this child one that, okay, he or she can have this type of goals, or do I need to kind of keep it silly, keep it pretty simple, you know what I mean? And so I think that's something that we'll have to talk about in a live too, is should your child have several goals, or should your child have fewer goals? And how do you know what child needs which? Right? It's this confusing puzzle, guys. You have to understand, our kids are just so unique that we have to figure out what is going to work for them. All right? So at the end of the day, today I think we covered a lot in regards to working memory, and I think that hopefully you have digested a little bit of it, and we will go into more detail. If you have questions, please post them below. And, you know, make sure you think about it and look at your child's IEP. Look at their last evaluations. Find out, you know, do they need, you know, some help with working memory? Is this an area? Here, I'm going to get this to you guys, this link. All right. So the course is, I'm doing 4 of them. 1 at the very end of this month, and then 3 in where am I at? In February. And it's $200 off what I'm normally going to charge, because it's really like a one-on-one with me, basically. It's where you will get me pretty much one-to-one. It's going to be a 1 to 12, 1 to 15. And let me turn this off. Okay. So I want you guys to check it out. And if you have any questions, I just posted it for you guys. So hopefully you guys check it out. I'm really excited about it. You know, you're going to learn about what? The meat and potatoes of your IEP, which is the present levels, how to write them yourself, and then you're going to learn about goals and how to write SMART goals. I know that's something that everybody's been asking me, so this is your chance. I'm going to literally teach you how to take goals and immediately make them SMART, and how to take your own child's goals and how to immediately make them SMART. So all of my students, many of them friends, or what I would call friends, are going to join me in these classes. I have four dates that I'm offering for the $200 off, and you literally come with your IEP, and we're going to work through the goals portion, at least, with you. And you're going to say, hey, here's one of my goals. And then I'm going to repeat it back to you. And I'm going to say, this is how it should be written. All right. I'm going to help you with short-term objectives. And you're going to really have that straight. And if your child hasn't had a recent evaluation, you're at least going to know how to take from that and create your child's IEP, because your child's present levels dictate everything. So, and that's something we talked about today in the IEP that I was in, is everything from those present levels. That's how you make goals. That's how you see what services, accommodations, and modifications have to be given, you know, and what would work and not work for your child. Or, for example, those working memory issues, those things are what are noted in the present levels, and your child's last evaluations and the scores, and, you know, where they scored in any type of assessment, that type of thing, all should be in your present level so that you know exactly where your child is presently. All right. And then you're able to see if progress has been made. So that's what you're going to learn in the course, is how to write and read and find your present levels. And then you're going to do the same with the goals. And then, of course, services, accommodations, and modifications are just going to come, but I'm going to point it out to you of how you distinguish that and figure it out. And so I'm excited about it. It'll be fun. So if you're interested, I put the link, I believe. Yeah, I put the link in the chat if you're interested. And if you have any questions, just PM me. All right, so who do we got? Oh, don't forget, post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. So we, of course, have Erin and Ashley, hello, and Jennifer and Christy, welcome. So nice to have you. And Lori. Christy says, I struggle with working memory myself, so it makes it even more difficult helping my child who also struggles with reading and math. Yeah, I can totally see that. But, you know, the thing is because you have concerns with that, you are the best person to teach your child, because you understand what she's going through. And that's awesome. So I'm assuming it's a girl. I don't know. Don't pay attention to that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's great, because you're going to be such a good person to teach your child. And then you're going to have the concepts and the understanding to then explain it to the team. Because I have been in so many IEPs, let's just say since March, hundreds. And like, I literally have back-to-back IEPs through pushing into the second week of February right now. And do you know, so many IEPs I have gone to, children have working memory issues, and do you know, it's never brought up. Never. Or to say that they have working memory issues, you'll see that it says significantly low, but nothing. Nothing. No one has ever said, you know, the child has working memory issues. We really need to hone in on this and focus on it and figure out where the severity of the need is. Why? I always have to say, she's struggling in reading and math and written expression because she has working memory issues. Why aren't you guys looking at that? That's what I have to say. We got Kim. Lori says, that's what my son asked me when I was reading a book. Mama, why read if you can't remember or understand? He said that's why when they ask me to read, I get mad and break things. Jessica, hello, hello. And Christy, welcome. And then we have Carla, welcome, welcome from North Carolina. And Liz from Maryland. What part of Maryland, if you're still on? Then we have Jessie. Hello, hello. And Amanda, she says, what are some great classroom testing accommodations for children that are in 3rd through 5th grade? Well, I mean, there's always, you know, extra time. Breaks with testing, because it is overwhelming and cumbersome to the brain at times, especially children with working memory issues, sensory issues, ADHD, so forth. So I always, depending on the age, but I think 5 minutes to every 30 minutes is a good number. Always have a number on that. Never in your IEPs should you have frequent breaks and no number. Not okay. Our kids are too smart for that. They will take advantage of that in a darn heartbeat. And believe me, they are smart. All right? So they are super smart. And they will say, hey, if I don't want to do this, it's called escape behavior. I don't want to do this, so let me get a break. I don't want to do this. I'm going to go take a break. I used to say I had to go to the bathroom all the time if I didn't want to do the work or be in that class. I got to go to the bathroom all the time. So think about our kids, they're going to always have something because they don't want to do the work. So always a time on breaks. Gosh, what else? Also another one, Amanda, is assessments being done with a small group, in a quiet room. Those are types of things that I find very helpful. If the child can't read very well, then the assessment needs to be read to them, and by somebody that is fluent in their words, not someone not. Okay, I'm just going to be very transparent about that. Okay, I've heard enough about one-on-ones, different things, different issues, different situations. But bottom line, make sure they're proficient in their English, all right? And that they can verbally say what that test means with the right time to say the period, with the right question and the right blank of what they have to fill in, all right? And if, you're Spanish and or you speak a different language, then that child needs to be read in that language that they're more fluent in. All right. A lot of schools will say, oh no, you got to have it read to you in English. And, I completely disagree with that. The goal is for the child to learn. All right. Of course we want children to learn English, just like if I went to Spain, I would want to learn complete fluent Spanish, which is what I'm trying to do now. And so that's a want. That's a something that we want that child to get to, but that child's in school to learn. So if that child's first language is Chinese, or if it's Mandarin, or if it's Spanish, I don't care. They need to be tested and learn as best they can in whatever that language is, and then you transfer them to English if possible. And if that can happen. But the goal is for them to learn. You don't want a child, with special needs or any other child who more fluently speaks, let's just say Spanish, and you're testing them in English. But they knew most of those test questions but failed because it wasn't given in their first language. Not cool. All right? So, all right. What do I think about homeschool? I think that it would drive me batshit crazy and I could never do it. But anybody who can do it, more power to them. That's what I think, Angie. I have lots of friends who homeschool. I could never do it. I could never, ever do it. I don't have the patience for that. But if you do, go for it, girl. There's nothing wrong with homeschool. I know there's like positives and negatives about everything, but I have no qualms, issues, concerns about homeschooling as long as that parent is excited about teaching their kids and wanting the best for them. Aaron says, my son struggles with notes too. Now that we are online learning, his one-to-one isn't there to help teach with that. Yeah. Is it wrong to allow them to assume every time he is in class, I am available to take notes and help him? Nope, it's not. And I would specifically tell them that I am not the babysitter and I'm the mom and you're the teacher. So let's understand the dynamic there. Now, I'm a little bit of a smartass with that, so I will admit that and own that. But no, if the child's in school virtually, You guys know I joke and say, I don't care if they're sitting in the middle of the street. They better be given what's needed and appropriate, right? Same thing virtually. That teacher better, I mean, your job at home with your child, Aaron, is to make sure he's safe. That's your job. Feed him lunch. You know I'm joking. But as far as helping with school, I have told my parents, you want a real good look at where your child is? Don't help them for a week. All right? Don't help them. That's not a mean thing. Tell the teacher, say, I have some things to do. Here you go. Here's Sarah. Have fun. All right? So if Sarah's running around the room, teacher needs to get the attention. If Sarah's off going to the bathroom, teacher needs to figure it out. Now, they're not physically there. Okay? I get it. I get that part. But what I'm trying to show, all right, is if the parents didn't sit by their kids as the one-on-one, 24/7, helping their kids, prompting their kids, doing for their kids as we should, right? Where's your child for real? You're going to learn really quick where your child is without your help. So a lot of parents that I've talked to have said, Raven, if I wasn't sitting right next to my child doing X, Y, Z, then who knows where they'd be right now. So I always say, all right, let's do something. Let's do this. So for 1 week, I want you to help your child do everything you possibly can. Prompt them, make sure they stay in their seat, make sure they're paying attention, you know, just be there one-on-one. Be the best one-on-one you possibly can be, all right? And then I say, and then the next week, do nothing. 0. If the teacher says to you, hey, can you help so-and-so do this? Nope. Don't do it. You're not the teacher. So technically speaking, all right, you don't have to help. You don't have to do it. Because there's a lot of households where mom and dad has to work. And big sister or big brother are babysitting, plus doing their own work. That's what's happening in today's day and age because of COVID. So there are parents that cannot physically sit by their child and help. And so you have to be able to, at least for 1 week, I know you might feel guilty and you don't want to do it and that sort of thing. But for 1 week, do it. Find out where your child really is. Find out how much help they really need. And possibly, just possibly, you may be a parent that have been fighting for a one-on-one and you've been getting that no, 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 no. You'll figure out real quick if your child really does need a one-on-one and if you were right. Okay? All right. So, what else? Picture cues. Yes, they're awesome. Great to know we're right on track. Yes. And you're welcome, Christina. It's good to see you back. I see all your pictures on Facebook. I love seeing them. Christina is all decorated for Valentine's Day already. I loved all your stuff. Kim says, you're welcome. I just bought one on record. Okay, so y'all are talking to each other. That's awesome. See, that's what people do in my group. You just got to stick in the Search for Autism All Off IEP group and see they all talk. They all know each other. So all you newbies, you got to join the group. All right. So Miriam says, how can I teach my 7-year-old all girl the ABC and numbers because she is not keeping the information? The first thing I would tell parents, because I did used to teach kindergarten, is, that wasn't the only grade, but one, is never teach your child to sing the alphabet. I know, right? I learned how to sing the alphabet, A, B, C, D, right? So we all like almost learn to do that with our kids, right? Do that still, you know, when they're babies and stuff. But when it comes to them learning, stop singing. Stop singing the ABCs. I'm not kidding, okay? It really messes with kindergarten teachers. You don't want to sing the ABCs because it doesn't teach them the ABCs. You think, you know, and I thought this too with my older kids, is, oh, you know, hi, Anna, how are you? Is I used to think, oh, you know, my kids know the ABCs, they can sing it, they're so great, this is so awesome, you know. And then I would say, tell me your ABCs, you know, and they would not know how to do it, you know. Like if you say, have your child do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, like that, all right? And I used to even kind of like syllable, you know, just like kind of count it to them, because if they're used to being sung the ABCs, then you have to have some sort of pattern to it. So you transfer them to the pattern, all right? And then you fade the pattern out. And that is a way for them to process a little bit better. But if you transfer from we're singing the ABCs to bam, just say it, they're going to have no clue. So you want to transfer them with ease. Now, I'm not saying that all kids are just not going to know the ABCs from singing it. But from my experience, many children cannot go from singing the ABCs to just saying the ABCs. All right? So try not to sing it. Counting, get a visual. Everything's about visual. Have in your house the ABCs, you know, on the wall, but at visual level, not across the freaking ceiling. I don't know why teachers do that. They put everything around the ceiling. No, put it at their eye. Okay, people have to see it right here. Okay, so who looks up at the ceiling? I don't look up at the ceiling. It has to be at the eye. Where you stand and what you see, you don't look up at the ceiling all the time. Who wants to look at this like all the time? No, you want something right here at your eye level. So when you're teaching children, when you're an educator, granted, it may look stupid, but guess what? Kids learn best when things are all jacked up. And they learn things best when things are at their eye level. I used to love it where, you know, I hated giving worksheets. Back when I taught, though, guys, I could teach hands-on. It's not like it is today where a lot of teachers teach to have the kids pass those stupid statewide tests. No, that was not for me. I used to teach with enthusiasm and excitement, and I would have my kids get up, and I would give them rulers, and I would have them point to the letters and, you know, stuff like that. And guess what? They learned it because they were able to do something in their learning. So, long story short, I love that stuff. I love teaching. It's something I really love to do. I miss it a little bit. So now I teach you guys. See? I kind of transferred it, but, you know. Aw, thanks, Christina. I love you too. Miss you. Shannon, hi. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Tess. How are you? Hey, Jessica. Okay, so glad I hopped on tonight because I would have been more. I'm going to message you, Kim. I was going to message you. Yeah, guys, don't forget to grab the course if you want to join me, okay, face-to-face, and we'll have a good time. Welcome, welcome, Miriam. Hey, Susan. I messaged you. I never got that email. And hey, Anna, long time no talk. So glad I caught you live. Missed your information. You're awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I would not help them, but because of computer issues, it's hard not to help them because sometimes the teacher is asking, did he say that right? Or, yeah, I get that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you caught me live too, Anna. I use flashcards. Yeah, I love flashcards. I used to play games with flashcards. See, but that's the thing. See, Susan just mentioned flashcards. I can't believe I didn't even think about that. Why is flashcards good? Why? Because it's a visual. Most people, even if they're all three, are visual. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Most people are still visual, even if they're auditory as well. Okay? Me, I'm all three. I gotta see it, feel it, touch it, hear it. It's gotta all come in the brain. Hey, Andrea, how are you? Welcome. I love your picture. You're so pretty. All right, guys. So I want you guys to join a class with me. I really do, because I think we would really have a lot of time and a lot of time to learn what you need to know to get your IEP where it needs to be. But if you're wanting to talk to me or set something up, or you have something going on right now that you really just need addressed, and you're like, Raven, I really want to learn present levels, I want to learn how to write them, and I really want to learn how to write goals, but right now I am panicking, this is what's going on, you can PM me and we will chat, okay? So I hope you enjoyed tonight about working memory. I hope you learned something, even if it was just one thing. And I hope that you share this video. That would be great. Maybe it'll help somebody else. I always say, you know, if I help just one person, that would be awesome. And making sure that kids are getting everything that they need and what's appropriate for them. And you never know who's out there who's just really struggling and just down and out because their child's not making progress. So if you want to share this, give it to one of your friends or someone that you know who is just really struggling with their child's education right now and that you think this would help them, definitely share this with them. All right, so I will talk to you guys soon and have a wonderful Thursday night. Bye.